All right, welcome back to the Ace and Rob and Ace show. I'm Ace. Rob is with us as well. We're going to tackle a different subject today, kind of a little more structured, serious subject today. Subject is going to be something that I've dealt with in my life. I believe Rob, you have as well. Interracial dating and interracial relationships, pros and cons, and dispelling some of the myths about them. And I think this is an important topic because, let's be real, it's more prevalent now than it's ever been in society, at least in American society,
especially in the United States.
Yeah, it's and I mean that's a lot to do with the racial makeup, with a lot of the laws that were passed, a lot of the things that are happening in our country's history. But it's prevalent now, so we should talk about it. We should discuss it. We should go over some of the things, like what are some of the pros of being in an interracial relationship. Well, in my experience, it's you learn about somebody else's culture. Like, my ex-wife is Italian. There's a lot of things that I learned about white people in general that I would not have known if I wasn't around them as much as I had to be, because they were family at that point. And it's not negative, it's not positive. It's just you learn certain experiences. Like, one thing I've learned that a lot of my Black brothers and sisters don't realize is that there's a lot of racist white people that don't know they're racist. And because they don't think what they're doing is racist, they just think that, oh, this just is what it is. It's not a malicious, like I've learned to put it in categories of malicious racism and just ignorant racism. Like, I gave you an example. Like, I remember we were having a dinner one time and we get to talking about, stories and interactions, and I'm talking about, oh yeah, how racist some of the cops treated me. Because when I lived in a certain town, I lived in a town that was middle and upper class. And as a Black man, we all know there's not a Black man on this lovely country of ours that doesn't know that you're going to get treated a certain way if you live there. So I would get pulled over at least once a month. It like clockwork. My car wasn't the greatest, but I live where I live. I wanted to move there because, number one, it's safe and it was a good neighborhood. But I would get pulled over at least once a month. And it got to the point where I asked, like, it was like the 6th or 7th month in a row, I'm getting pulled over at least once, sometimes multiple times.
I remember you missed work because of it one time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I talked to the cop and I said, honestly, am I driving wrong? Like, what am I doing? Like, why? Like, it was always BS. I never got a ticket. Whenever they pulled me over, it was never a ticket. It was those little fishing things they do. Like, people who are younger, men and women, when cops pull you over, they don't always have a reason. They're going to make up that reason when they get to your window. But a lot of times they're fishing. They got quotas. Don't ever let them tell you differently. I have too many cop friends that tells you the truth. They have quotas. They have ticket quotas they have to meet every month. Those badges and bullets don't pay for themselves. They got to get funds to the city somehow. And that's what these tickets are. So they're going to do these fishing exercises and they're going to pick on the low-hanging fruit. If they see a car that's not the same as all the other cars in the same area, they're going to go after that person because they probably don't belong there. They may have something on them. So I asked them generally, like, what, like, am I driving something? Like, what am I doing wrong? Because I never get a ticket. Like, you can check on your computer. I don't have any tickets. There's nothing in the system for me. My driver's license has 0 points. Why are you guys always pulling me over?
You don't drink.
I don't drink.
Drunk,
I'm 41 years old. Never been drunk. Never been high. It's just it's a choice I made when I was younger, and I've stuck to it. So those aren't things you could pick out either. I'm not driving erratically, and I couldn't even be mad at how racist the cop was, because I don't even think he thought he was being racist. He said, "Come on, you know how you look." Just that blase.
So racist.
Yeah, just that blase to me. Just, you know how you look. This isn't in 1930, by the way. This is in like 2008. That's my point. I'm sharing this story with.
He didn't talk like a 1930s detective.
No, this wasn't. I'm going to hang you after we finish this conversation.
Are you listening to me, Darky?
Yeah, this wasn't. That's my point. This wasn't a get out. You're going to go back to the fields after this conversation. This wasn't that time. This was literally 12 years ago, 13 years ago. This wasn't a long time. So I had to laugh by how, at that point in time, how racist I was. Like, this fucking guy is so racist. I wish I was recording this. This was before camera phones were a huge thing. I wish I was recording this. I'm telling this story to a 50-plus-year-old white man, a 50-plus-year-old white woman, and my wife, who's 4 years younger than me. And he's like, well, yeah, I get pulled over too. I get pulled over. Like, I remember I was driving, 10 miles past the speed limit. A guy pulled me over, harassed. And he, in his head, equated both things the same. Him actually breaking the law and getting pulled over, and me not doing anything and get pulled over because of my skin. It's the ignorant racism that a lot of white people have because they just don't know any better. And that's one of the pros of an interracial relationship. They get forced to know better. Like, my white ex-father-in-law now has a black grandson. So he has to learn better. He has to look out for things. He's noticed people looking at him different when he's playing with his grandson in public. That's something that is forced upon him now. So he's going to have to be better as a person because of what happened with myself and his daughter. You give me some pros on your end.
Pros of interracial dating. Let's see. So for the listeners, for reference, despite my voice, I am Hispanic.
You're Puerto Rican. Just say it.
Yep. What some might call Puerto Rican.
That's a Northeast thing. Don't.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this in Alabama, just take this as an education.
If you're from Alabama, I'm Mexican. It's fine. What I have learned. Okay, so pros of interracial dating. It's tough for me because let me also preface this by explaining to the audience, we're specifically talking about dating. We're not talking about hooking up. We're talking about
relationships and marriage.
We're talking about, because a big part of dating is you eventually have to meet this person's family.
Like, I'm gonna go into the whole, when we go to the myths and dispelling those later on about dating, but I don't. This whole podcast, we don't give a shit about dating. Dating's easy. Any woman can open her legs and date. That's not hard to do. Any man with a lot of money can date. That's not hard to do. But relationships and marriages are hard. Those are the things we focus on.
Yeah, we're talking about like you have a relationship with this person. The bulk of my experience has been with white women. I have had relationships, but they were brief, and I was very young, with Hispanic women. And I have had brief relationships with Asian women. I shouldn't even say women. This is girls. When you're that young, they're not women, they're girls,
Once they pass 18, they're women. We're going by the law.
I mean, I'm talking young, like I was young,
yeah, I get it. That's my point. Like,
young guys.
You're around the same age.
So for a long stretch after that, it was white girls, but in terms of, I think what you learn the most is when you meet family members, you know what I mean? And friends. Pros. I'm going to say the pro, I guess, I could think of, because your pro is different because you had like a full marriage and a kid with a white woman, is that white girls like Hispanic guys. that is a pro. They just really like Hispanic guys. Like, I don't know if it's like a stage or a phase, or like there's levels of rebellion that white girls go through where they have to climb up the ladder. And then
there are differences in cultures, and you need to be exposed to. Like, there are certain things that you're going to experience with cultures, and this has to go with some of the myths we're going to bust later in interracial relationships. But one of the things I wanted to point out is this isn't about telling you to date outside your race and not to date outside your race. There is a benefit in dating outside your race, is that you're opening up your dating options. If I'm a man and I'm only dating Black women, that means all white women, all Hispanic women, all Egyptian women, all Indian women, all any Chinese women, Asian, all encompassing. I have limited my pool to just this. And if that is your preference, by all means, knock yourself out. But be okay knowing that you've just limited your options. You've
You shrank
limited
your
your
dating
options.
pool.
You've shrunk, and women, it goes doubly for you. And especially for you, it's very important because you have to understand the limitations of whatever options you pick. If you say I'm only going to date black men, but you want a black man that makes $120,000 a year, you've now doubly shrunk your dating pool. You've shrunk your dating pool to only black men, and you've shrunk your dating pool because in black men, only about 8 to 10% of us make that. So if those are your two criteria, you have 8 to 10% of the men in America that you can choose from. You've completely limited your pool. As long as you're okay with that knowledge, knock yourself out. But it is okay because there's a stigma, especially in the black community, especially in the white community. I don't know about the Hispanic community if it's that prevalent, that dating outside your race is bad.
I'm glad we can even bring that up. So I'll go into that part later.
Yeah, because it's just a fact. It has to do with this country's history.
It's very different with the Hispanic community.
Yeah, with there's you'll never hear a story about, like, I've never heard really a story about, a Hispanic person bringing home a black, and then the mother's upset, but you'll hear that all the time. Like my mother used to be a Black Panther. I brought home an Italian woman. Fortunately, it was at a time in her life where she was more accepting. She was older. She learned. But if she was younger, no, she used to say some stuff. No, I would never repeat it about white women, about white people in general, because of how she was raised. She learned later on in life to be different. But there's a stigma in both, but you don't really learn. And that goes into one of the myths I want to dispel now. And this, I'm speaking to men in general. Enough with the professional tone of my voice. Fellas, if you come out your mouth and say, I don't find certain race attractive, fuck out of here forever. That's not how men operate. You can say I've never met one, which is fine. But if you say I don't find Chinese women attractive, there's too many out there that you can show. Like that's not possible. There's too many. The internet exists. You can't say that. You can say you haven't met any.
Literally, you can type hot and then fill in the blank for race.
That's what I'm saying. So
woman,
don't say you don't find them attractive. Say you don't want to mess with them. You don't want to date them. I prefer to date this. That's fine.
Just
but
say
don't
you're gay,
lie. It's not even that, because there's these pro black and pro white and pro everything guys.
I get it.
Who live that facade of bullshit. But you know that's not true. Like that's the whole Derek Jackson thing. You're saying it, but let me bring a supermodel Asian woman. I guarantee you smash it. Let's give an example. Let's say you're a white guy who says I wouldn't date a black woman. I just don't find black women attractive. Not a racial thing, just the features I don't like. Let me bring Beyonce around and see if you say that. Let me bring Rihanna around and see if you still got that same energy. Because 99.99% out of 100, you're gonna smash. Let's stop saying that. It's defeatist. It's dumb. Be honest with your sexuality. You can have a preference. I prefer a certain race, but I'm never going to say I'm not going to mess with a different race because that's just dumb. There's attractive women in every race. I've been to Baskin Robbins. I've sampled almost every flavor of woman. There's attractive in all of them. You got to find what works for you, but don't, when you limit yourself like that on the basis of sexuality, FOH. Women is different. I get women. I understand women are different. They aren't as physical as we are when it comes to appearance. By all means, I'm talking to dudes. If a dude says that to me, I cannot even have a conversation with you anymore. There's a YouTuber. What is her name? Jenny Babas, I think her name is. I think she's the Filipino or Asian or something. If you say you wouldn't have sex with her, I can't talk to you. That's how attractive she is. I cannot talk to you. She fits every category of attractive woman. And there are men who are like, no, I would never mess with her because she's not part of my, like, fuck out of here. What is wrong? No, you would, fuckers. You're
No, no,
lying.
they're liars.
You're lying. You're pretending.
Because
Don't
I
come with,
just
don't,
Google imaged her, and
yes.
yes, they would.
Don't come with the fallacy of that nonsense. There's a, in the black culture, there's a guy named Dr. Umar Johnson. He's a fake, one of these fake Pan-African guys who scams people for money, but people still believe he's pro-black, whatever. He had a big rant a long time ago about interracial marriages and how I don't support it because if a black man doesn't date a black woman, then he's not worthwhile to the black community. Like, shut the fuck up. You fucked white women before. We know. We got the receipts. Like, stop lying. Don't be disingenuous with who you are about life, because it's always going to bite you in the ass. That's one of the myths we got to dispel. Men, we are sexual creatures. Don't say you wouldn't have sex with something. You would. There's always a version of it that you would. You might not mess with the ugliest Indian woman in the world, but there's a hot Indian woman you would bend over backwards to fuck. So don't lie. Another interracial myth, which hits home in my culture a lot, is when black men get successful, they run off and get a white woman. Have you ever heard that before?
I have heard that.
Do you understand where it comes from?
I understand where it comes from because you know where I think it comes from, or at least maybe my understanding of where it comes from is celebrities.
I was just about to say celebrities and athletes.
But there's plenty of famous black celebrities and athletes who also marry black women. So it's like,
but
listen, the most successful black man on the planet is Jay-Z right now. That's indisputable.
I mean,
his wife is black.
There's some wealthier, but he's up there. He's definitely an echelon.
I just know the Billionaires Club is just
in America.
At that point, it doesn't even matter anymore. Once you hit billions, like they're just fighting over who gets to be a bigger billionaire.
Yeah, you just basically instead of fighting over who picks up the tab, who picks up the stadium, right? They fight over different things.
I bought the last stadium. Now you have to buy the stadium.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. So I get where you're coming with the Jay-Z thing, but what a lot of women, and again, ladies, this is going to sound harsh, and it's another dose of Buckley's you're going to have to just ingest. You wasn't going to get these dudes anyway. Most of you, 90% of you weren't getting these guys anyway. They aren't leaving the black community. You were never around them in the first place. But what you got to understand is we date and marry who we're around. If I'm a successful, let's say, football player, a black football player from the hood, and I go to USC, which is a top college football program, how many black women is he going to meet in USC? Which is, I believe, last time I checked, like 60 to 70% white. He's going to be surrounded by cheerleaders who are white, sponsors who are white, people in his class, tutors, all that stuff. So that's who he's naturally going to be around. And then when he makes it to the league, if he doesn't already have that woman with him, he's going to be around mostly white women who are in his same social status. They're going to be around him more than the average black woman. He's going to be around them, so he's going to date them. Just like if he wasn't around him, he probably wouldn't date them.
I'll give you another perfect set of examples if we're going with the sports world here. So for anyone who needs to shed some of that mystery about me, is I work in the fight business. And so I work with a lot of MMA fighters, but I also know a lot of boxers. And a friend of mine runs a boxing gym. So I basically, I have, like, I know both cultures. And black MMA fighters, there's a lot of them who have white wives. Why? The reason for that is because their bridge to getting into MMA usually is wrestling. Black girls don't like wrestling.
They don't follow black girls don't like MMA.
They don't like MMA. They don't like wrestling. They don't follow it. They're not going to follow those athletes.
And then you got to go more in depth in the cultural differences. Like, the prize of marriage is different in a white household, in a white middle class household, as opposed to a black household. Let's be honest, I'm just being real. Statistically speaking, there are more single mother households in the black community than any other community in America. We don't grow up more often not seeing successful marriages, so we don't go after successful marriages. We're not prioritizing marriage. We're prioritizing getting our finances right, especially younger black women. They don't want to end up like their mom, so they're making sure their money's right. They're focused on their careers, and marriage comes after. When in white society, it's the opposite more often than not. It's marriage, then career. So you're in a college space, we're around most white women who are marriage minded, who are trying to catch that husband. You are successful, you are of that status, so they are presenting the best option to you. They are being feminine, they are being fit, and they're being submissive. And ladies, I'm going to say it because Rob can't. As a black man, there are a lot of black women who don't know how to be submissive. I'm not saying you got to be a pushover. I'm not saying you got to be a punk. I'm not saying you can't have your own mind and have your own thoughts. But when I say submissive, I mean, when I give you an idea, when I say I'm leading it, you can do input, but I'm making the ultimate decisions. As a man, that's what we want to do. We will ask for your input, but we want to do this. We want to plan. We want to be the ones driving. We want to be the one doing all the things that a leader is. That's how we're built. That's how we're raised. That's how we're made. There's a lot of black women who, again, have that fight in them, especially in the Northeast where we're from, where they want 50-50. Fuck out of here with 50-50. That's not how marriages work. Somebody has to lead. If I'm putting in 50 and you're putting in 50, who gets anywhere by not having somebody do more than the other? It doesn't work.
You can't have two sets of hands on the steering wheel. You just can't.
You can't. Indian tribes didn't have two chiefs. African tribes didn't have two chiefs. You have a army platoon has a certain number of people leading it, because everybody can't lead it. It can't be 100% everybody has the same say, because you won't get anywhere. Everybody has different opinions. Somebody has to say, no, this is what we're doing. And that's what men want. And in our community, there is a fight for that. In the white community, I'm going to be honest, white women don't do that more often than not. That comes later on. It's the old Patrice O'Neal, because again, we keep bringing up The Godfather for a reason. He has a joke on the Mr. P album where he talks about how black women are warlike up front, but once you get past that warlike part, they're with you for life. They're riders. They'll never leave you. You could shoot them in the thigh and they'll still be there with you. White women are the exact opposite. They give you everything you want up front: docile, friendly, submissive, sexual, doing everything you need to secure that position. They get cold on the back end. It's a dichotomy to it. It's a yin and yang, but they're winning that man because they're giving what he wants up front. He's getting the woman who's fit, who's feminine, who is not giving him a hard time. So of course he's gonna sashay his way over there. You got to do
just
the same thing,
ladies. A small hint of advice for any ladies listening, and this is the only time I'm going to say something unrelated to the topic at hand. You should not follow either of those models. You be good all the time, up front and on the back end. I'm not here for that one or the other. You know,
just say that again, because people need to hear
it. For once more, for the people in the back.
Just say it again.
I'm not here. We're not here, not anymore. The men who have woken up, we're not here for, I'm going to be good in the front end and then I'm going to go cold, or I'm going to be hard to deal with on the front end and then you got to survive that and then I'll be good on the back end. No, I want you good on the front end and you're going to stay good. And then on the back end, when we're old, you're still going to be good, because I don't care how much time I have left in this world. If I got a year left to live, if you're not good, I will leave and die alone.
And that's what we were talking about earlier in the earlier episode with the ex-wife syndrome. You got to you're signing up for a job. Marriage is a job. Relationships are a job. That's how you need to think about it. This is you when you are younger, you can have a job or you can have a career. So let me rephrase this. Relationships are a job. Marriages are career. In what career could you show up to work, fuck around, not do what you're hired for, be an asshole, and still keep your job, or still keep your career? In both instances, you're out, you're fired. It's not going to happen. That's how you have to look at your relationship and your marriage. If you did this to get me, you got to do that same thing to keep me. Yep. White women are getting an advantage. Hispanic women and other races are in the same boat. But like I said, it's mostly affecting my group of women, where because they're not giving us the good resume up front, they're not even getting hired for the job. Becky's taking that job. And that job being the quote unquote athlete, celebrity, black athlete, black celebrity who was dating a white woman, who was marrying a white woman. It's not just that they don't like black women. That's a childish train of thought. Oh, he just don't want to be around me because I'm a strong. She docile. He don't want a strong woman. No, he don't want a masculine woman. He doesn't want a woman who fights. He doesn't want a woman who argues all the time. No man wants that. It's not just him. It's all
God. And what you just said, I hate hearing that so much. Oh, he can't handle it. No, I can handle it. I don't want to.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, why would I want to handle that? Why would I want to have a woman belittle me, argue? Like, I give little tidbits about my life throughout these episodes. I grew up with obviously a mother, African American, and an older sister, also African American.
Wait, you're black?
Yes, I've said it multiple times. I've seen them both break a man down verbally. Why would I remember my sister, who's been married multiple times, she's one of the outliers. I remember her first marriage. The guy was sitting on a couch. They had just gotten into an argument about nonsense. It literally didn't even matter, but it was about a 5-minute her berating him about nothing. He sits on the couch and he's like, that's the woman I'm about to marry. And I looked at him and I said, yo, what are you doing? I feel sorry for you, man. This is my sister I'm talking about. Because
I never heard this story, and that's fucked up.
And that's the thing. It was because it's so bad. I had to remove the emotion of family out of it and see this guy's being abused. Why would you want to sit? It's like, you're not a strong woman. You're an abusive woman. Just like, why would a woman sign up to be punched in the face by her husband all day? Why would I sign up to be punched in the brain all day by you? You're not, that's
and I wonder if there's guys listening who are thinking back to looking at how their moms and dads interacted, and maybe they're thinking the same thing.
Oh, 100%. That goes into it. It affects women too. Like, if you grow up in a household where your mother berates your father constantly, you don't see a problem with it, or you see a super problem with it and you go against it. Those are the only two outcomes. You're either going to be super against it. It's like growing up with a drug addicted parent. You're either going to grow up a drug addict yourself, or you're going to never touch a drug in your life.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, because if we're talking about interracial dating, do you find, in your experience, and I don't know how many different cultures
everyone
that you've dated into,
I've checked out the list, everyone.
Do you see this across the board? You see this type of dynamic and interactivity across the board, all different cultures?
Yes, because each culture approaches marriage and relationships differently. Like Indians, for example, I had 2 Indian girlfriends in my past, not super long relationships, but long enough to know, and be immersed in the culture somewhat. They prize marriage. They prize marriage so much, they arrange that shit. You got to get married. In Chinese culture, if you're not married,
Diwali. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're I did celebrate Diwali once, yes. If 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 you're a Chinese woman and you're not married by 24, they look down on you. This is part of their culture. Look it up. They look down on women who aren't married by a certain age. They prize that. They will arrange a marriage. They will make you property. They will say, look, because I know the value as your parents of being married, I'm going to make you get married. So it's a cultural thing. We as African Americans don't have that. We don't have, and there's a lot of reasons. It's not all our fault, but it becomes our fault if we know it and don't do anything about it. Marriage is important, especially marriage at a younger age. You're building a life, you're building a foundation. You can't do that alone, especially ladies. Like, I hate to say it, this isn't a misogynist take. You can't do it alone. Like, if if there are too many statistics out there that show that single parent households and the children that grew up with them are way worse off than two parent households. It's just a fact. And you, with this, I could do it all, I could do that all by myself, and putting a happy Father's Day post up when you're a woman, you're not helping yourself, you're not helping your kids, you're not helping your situation. Men need women, women need men for companionship, I should say. Accept it. Don't go into this whole thing where I'm fine just being alone. No, you're not. You're lying to yourself. You're miserable. Because no one's fine being by themselves. Unless you're a hermit, unless you got that screw loose and you could live in a mountain in a cave by yourself and be fine with it, you're not okay with it. There's a reason in prison, solitary confinement is a punishment, because humans aren't built to be solitary. We're
Right.
built to be communal. It's our nature to get together. You get, we as Black people, we got to get past this. That's the last thing I'm gonna go about, just specifically on my culture. But we got to get past this I don't need X mentality, because you do. Even if it's just monetarily, you do. If you make $130,000 a year as a woman, which is in the top 10% of women in the country, not even going by race, just going by statistically speaking, top 10% of women in America that make more than $120,000 a year.
I think it's even less
If
than the top 10.
No, it's 10%. It's 10%. It gets it as the numbers go up, the percentage drastically decreases.
Yeah.
But $120,000 a year, 10% of women. If you're in that 10% and you make $120,000 a year, that's not enough to live off of forever. You're gonna eventually not work anymore. What are you doing with your retirement? And even not even going monetarily speaking, what are you doing when you're 60 and you need somebody to give you your insulin shots? Or you need somebody to help you up the stairs? Like, you're gonna burden your kids with that? Or are you gonna get married and tough out all the bad things and have a companion for the end of your life? I got, like I said, I have two women in my life, in my family. Both of them, one has already resigned herself to not having anybody when she dies. She's already given up on her relationship thing. And I got another one on the way. And that's a sad statistic because it affects my community the most. Like I said, there's the last thing I'm a point in it, but we got to get out of this mentality of, oh, I could always get another one, or I'm gonna just leave and exit. No, we need each other, and this ties into interracial dating. Is you if you only date one race, you limit your pool of options. If you willingly go into that, fine. But if you don't, if you know that I'm going to only be with a Black man, be prepared. You only got Black men to choose from. And out of all the Black men in America, about 13 to 15% of us is gay. And we have the highest prison rate, highest incarceration rate out of any race in the country as well. So you've already limited your options doubly with that. Didn't go to the money.
And Black men are way more willing to date outside their race.
100%. 100%. That stigma happens in our race, but it's as low. The guys I'm talking about are the extremes, the ones who like, I would never do that. But let's be real. If we will put
all you guys are
aside,
seeking to date outside your race, it's just you don't. It's you see that there's more than one type of girl, and you're like, cool, I'm going to date all of them.
Yeah, we have a culture to us where we are the hot commodity. through hip hop, through clothing, through all that stuff, we're looked at a certain type of way. So again, you gotta like again,
Two
we're not
most
trying to
popular
force
types
anybody to
of
do anything.
guys are white guys and black guys. That's it.
Yeah, like you gotta expand your horizons. You gotta like, even if you say to yourself, look, I'm as pro white or I'm as pro black, not in a racist way, but like I only want to date this. Just try, see what happens. Because I guarantee in your life, you've seen a white guy who looks good, or a black guy who looks good, or a white girl who looks good, or a black guy, or a Hispanic, or Asian. Open your horizons. Then you open up your dating options. Then you have way more to choose from. Now, is are the parents going to be happy? Maybe not, but fuck them. You're not with them. You're with the other person. That's not your concern. Your concern is your spouse.
Right. You're the future.
Yeah. So another myth about interracial dating, and one that irks me, is that the whole denial of the fact that you're dating interracially. And when I say that, I mean like you're gonna face discrimination. Go into it accepting that and do what you got to do to fight against it. I'm not telling you to be, just look the other way. Like I've had several interactions, with my white ex-wife where she didn't even notice it, but I did. That you it's America is not colorblind. We live in this country. And if you're listening to it outside this country, this is a peeking to us. We're not colorblind. You're gonna have people that judge you, you're gonna have people that look down on you. Fuck them. They don't matter. You have to be happy for you. Don't don't go into your life trying to please others. Don't go into life putting others' opinions above your own opinion. They don't matter. If somebody has a problem with your white wife or your black wife or your white husband or your black husband, they don't matter. You're never going to see them again. And if they're part of your family, don't ever see them again. You don't have to be around people that are quote unquote in your family. Like I'll give you another example. In my marriage, her cousin was super fucking racist. When Trump hit, racism came out on, like, racism was the new it thing.
He upgraded to racism 2.0.
Racism was the new Kanye release. It was the new Jordans. It was the new hot thing on the street. He knew that he could be, not N-word racist, but casual racist.
Oh, but he wanted to so bad.
Yeah, it was. But the thing is, I was prepared because I always saw it. You can't hide stuff from me because I've been black my whole life. I can tell when somebody's racist and when they're not. So he just finally let it out. So you know what I did? As opposed to going to all the family function, no, I'm not going to go. If your cousin's going to be there, I'm not going to be there. And I had to break it down to her. This is something you have to do in a relationship. You have to have these conversations, which help. You have to say, look, X is happening. This is how I'm responding to it. I need you to support me on this. In my conversation, it was, your cousin's racist. If I keep going to functions and he keeps saying racist shit, it's going to be a physical fight. I don't want to knock him out in front of his kids because that's what's going to happen eventually. So I'm just not going to go. You can go. I'm not judging you for going. Have fun, but I'm doing this for us. You have, if you're going to go into interracial dating, realize you're going into dating someone else from another race. There's going to be racial disparities. There's going to be racial discrimination. Go into it okay with that and have the conversations when these things pop up. Like, there was an old movie, Spike Lee, Jungle Fever, back in the day, which perfectly illustrated this. It was a black man dating an Italian woman. He cheated on his wife with this Italian woman and tried to make a relationship work, and it didn't work, obviously. But they weren't honest about what they were. They were a white woman and a black man. He got harassed by the police, and he was trying to tell, I remember it's a scene, he's trying to tell her, yo, be cool, be calm, whatever. And she's going off, like we've all seen those videos of white women going off on cops. And him said, he's like, she's going to get me killed. Shut up. Just let them do what they're doing so they can go about their business. And after that, she tries to hug him. He's like, get off me. I don't even want to talk to you right. Because they weren't honest about what they were getting into. You got to be upfront and adult about these situations. You are going to face problems. It's going to be harder for you as opposed to if you're dating someone in your race. But it's okay as long as you can talk your way through it. Don't go into it thinking, oh, it's 2021 and everybody loves everyone and rainbows and sunshines and cupcakes for everybody. No, that's Disney bullshit. We ain't all king princes and princesses. It ain't happening. There's racist people in this world. You got to maneuver around them. What about you, Rob? What any pros, cons, myths you want to talk about?
So what I like that you get to bring this perspective, because I have no experience with Black women, and from what I understand, a large part of that and what you describe is because Black women really focus in and only want Black guys, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's their preference 99 out of 100 times. You know what I mean? So it's not like I've never made that choice. It's just I never had that choice. They just never came at me, you know.
Mhm.
But as far as experience, where I'm concerned, like I said before, most of my experience, 75% of my experience is with the white woman variety. But when it comes to Hispanics and Latinos, we have a different experience entirely, because there's so many different countries in South America and the Caribbean, and they all have their own little private feuds, you know?
Mhm.
So, and from what I understand, also Asian cultures do this as well. Like Filipinos don't like the Japanese, and the same thing is like Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. It's a big thing with Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, but also Cubans and Colombians, which the movie Scarface illustrated that a little bit. Um, there's a little bit of all these neighboring countries like Guatemala and El Salvador, like all these neighboring countries in Hispanic dominated areas, or South America, have these like this Romeo and Juliet feud. And there's so many mixed kids from all of these countries. There's so many half Puerto Rican, half Dominicans. And I'm like, where is this coming from? I know I had so many half and half friends growing up. And I would ask my parents, I'd be like, listen, so if Puerto Ricans and Dominicans don't really like each other, why do I know so many Puerto Rican and Dominican people, like half and half? And I never really got a straight answer, and I had to sort of figure it out on my own as an adult. What it really comes down to is, and this goes on a broad scale because we are talking about interracial dating, what it comes down to is there is an ownership that every race, I'll say, takes of that race's women. And it comes down to, it's not so much that I'm not talking about myself here. It's not that as a Puerto Rican, I don't like Dominicans. It's I don't want any Dominican men sleeping with my Puerto Rican women. I can sleep with Dominican women, but I don't want any Dominican men sleeping with Puerto Rican women. That's what it is. It's a conquering. It's a 1,000-year-old genetic imprint from our ancestors that's in all people, where men are designed to conquer. Men are conquerors, and that's how we all ended up here today.
Mhm.
And that's what I think the big hang up on interracial dating comes from internally, not from a social standpoint, and not how we make movies and TV and culture out of it. But I think like I don't share that viewpoint. It doesn't matter to me. Like my sister, for example, obviously also Puerto Rican. Um, her husband is from El Salvador, but it's not like she was just
You're
looking
blowing
for.
some Midwest minds right now. Like, what is El Salvador?
El Salvador is other Mexico.
Okay.
Just yeah, it's all different parts of Mexico, guys. But so her husband's El Salvadorian, and or Salvadorian, no L. Like that's just how it is. But it's not like she was just looking for a not Puerto Rican guy. It's we live in the United States, and this is the most diverse country of all the countries. And New Jersey is the most diverse state in this country, and Jersey City is the most diverse township in the state. So you're just going to have so much interracial dating happening in this specific part of the world that, I mean, like, my niece was going to come out mixed. It's just what it is. That's what was going to happen. Like,
And that's another thing that you got to that's a good point. It's another one of these dispelling these myths. You do what you're around.
exactly.
Like if you grow up around a lot of different races, those racial hangups aren't as prevalent anymore. Like I went to a school that was, 70% white, a bunch of Indians, bunch of black people, bunch of Hispanic people. Like there was a lot of different races in one school. So seeing attractive white women being like, oh, that white girl's hot, or that black girl's hot, or that Hispanic girl's hot, or that Asian girl's hot, or that Filipino, like that wasn't a weird thing to me.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you are only hanging around your race, of course you're going to have racial hangups about other races. That's what I'm saying. It's about broadening your horizons. Like that's part of what I was saying about dudes.
Yeah.
100%. Like
You,
I can't understand.
you're completely
But
right, because for another perspective, let's make it much more easier for anyone listening who's still trying to wrap their head around it. If you're a black guy and you have to spend 2 years in China for whatever reason, guess what? Your next girlfriend's Chinese.
probably.
That's what's happening. The next girl, the next one or two or 10 girls you're sleeping with, they're going to be Chinese because you're in China. That's what
And
it is.
there's no other options. You're gonna make do. Like we're sexual creatures. Men, we're gonna figure it out. Like even if that's not our first preference, we're gonna figure it out. You're gonna get past the whole I don't want to do this or I don't find them. You're gonna figure out a way to get around it. And the point that we're having this conversation is it's okay to say, I'm only going to date this. I'm only going to date that. That's fine. As long as you go into it knowing that two things. One, you're not judging other people because they aren't living up to your standards. And two, you are limiting yourself in your dating pool. So if you end up alone and old with two cats, a dog, and a goldfish, that's because of what you did. That's part of the math equation. You reduced your viable suitors by a certain number because you refuse to go outside of that group of suitors. It's like if I'm living in a house with 10 people, there's 5 guys and 5 women. I only have 5 women to choose from. Those are my only options. If I say, well, out of these 5 women, I'm only going to date the black women, and there's only 2 black women, I now only have 2 women to choose from.
You better hope they like you.
And exactly. And now if out of those 2 black women, one of them is gay, I only have 1 woman to choose from. So if that 1 woman doesn't like me, I get to die alone. That's a choice I made. Don't be mad about it. Don't be resentful about it. Realize you are part of your own consequences. Your choices do matter. If you are at a certain point in your life and that whole there ain't no good men left, no, the ones you chose aren't good, or they were good and you're just a piece of shit and you don't notice what a good man is or a good woman is. But you also have to factor in which ones were you dating? What was your dating pool? Did you date outside your race? Did you only date people from your own area? Did you date outside the whole country? Have you traveled? Have you dated anywhere else? Like, don't be so limited in your mind view is the point I'm making. We didn't want to do a whole big, huge, hour-long episode on this. This is a bunch of other topics we really want to get into, but we wanted to talk about this specifically because it's something that affected both of our lives, and in good and bad ways. There's no 100% negative, 100% positive anything. Things have pluses and minuses to them, but the ultimate thing I wanted to talk about is choice. Understand that your choices have consequences.
I will say that one thing I did learn in regards to interracial dating is 100% of all stereotypes about white people are 100% accurate.
Which ones? Give me some, because I was
All of
exposed
them.
to this.
Every
Give,
last one of
give me like one or two, because I can tell you, well, we can match notes here.
them.
The seasoning thing,
Cooking. Yeah.
the
Oh my
not
God. I
seasoning
was
the
just
food,
gonna go into cooking.
not seasoning the food is 100% accurate. Yes,
No. If you know
I'm
what,
honest.
like,
This give a tidbit into my life, because I'm an open book. I had to teach my ex-wife about seasonings, and when we say seasoning, for for some of the white people that are listening, we're not talking about just salt and pepper. There's other things.
yes,
Adobo,
yes.
adobo exists. Seasoned salt exists. Old
Um,
Bay exists.
I will give credit where it's due. I didn't experience necessarily that problem, but the extended family, there, that cooking was not up to snuff. And also ex-girlfriends of the past, uh, of the one.
Look, and
Just,
it's not a negative. It's not a knock. Look,
just how do you
we're
invent
gonna have
Thanksgiving and then suck at Thanksgiving?
we're gonna have fun on this show. There's no maliciousness to this, but let's be real. If you go to a white Thanksgiving and then a black Thanksgiving, you'll never go to another white Thanksgiving again.
Same for Hispanics.
If you ask Hispanic, any race, if you ask my ex-wife, she will tell you to your face, ugh, my food sucks. It's just a fact.
Why? First of all, gravy is brown. It's not clear. It's not see-through.
No,
it's not just the drippings of
that's what I was going to say, because they don't know what gravy is. Gravy isn't just I was just going to say they're using the drippings. They're not using gravy. They're not using cornstarch and all the other seasonings to make it thicker and make it. They're not doing any of that. You're giving you dry turkey. Like, I remember the last Thanksgiving I was at my ex's
stuffing
house.
is moist.
I ate.
God damn it!
I ate maybe the least I've ever eaten in my life in one sitting. I was so hungry, and they all kept looking at me. Oh, you're not hungry anymore? Oh, you don't want to eat anymore? No, I'm good. I don't want to hurt your feelings anymore. I'm good. I didn't say it out loud, but my face did everything. I'm good. I can't hide my face. My face is very expressive. I'm good. I'll pass. I'm gonna go sit on the couch watching football. They all chowing away on dry turkey and brittle stuffing and
with
macaroni and cheese and mac and cheese, that had like burnt parts. Like, and they would be like, "Oh, I want the burnt part." Like, you want that? That means it wasn't cooked properly. That's nasty. Like, it's supposed to be creamy. What is this? Why is your mac and cheese hard and crusty? But again, it's a stereotype. It's funny. We're gonna have fun. There's several black stereotypes you can go to, but it is what it is. Okay, here's a good one. I put hot sauce on every goddamn thing.
Yeah, you do.
I will put hot sauce on popcorn. I'll put hot sauce on hot sauce. I don't care. It's delicious. You can't tell me. If you show me something, I will show you how to make hot sauce, make it taste better. Sorry. little dab makes the cornflakes taste a little better. A little bit of spice to them.
Breakfast is boring. You got to wake up in the morning.
Just a little dab. Get the back of your tongue working. There's nothing wrong with that. But my point is this, people. These are things you're never going to learn if you don't expand your horizons. Like, these things are funny. These things are enjoyable. These things are not as big of a deal as we make them out to be. But you gotta get off your high horses and expand your horizons. So with that being said, the Ace and Rob show, we're gonna bring this to a close. You guys enjoy yourself. We're gonna come back with about 2 more episodes next week. Then we're gonna start opening up the other things we'll start planning on doing. Like we said, we're gonna do life coaching sessions. We're gonna do the open discussions, but we're gonna start building up some content first before we do that. But ladies and gentlemen, you guys enjoy yourselves. This is a wrap for us for tonight. You take it easy till next time.
Smash that like button. Hit subscribe.
That's a given. You better do that.